I mean, this is a 7-5 season. No one's going to do cartwheels over, to a certain extent as the glory of a win like
Jordan
this
Marshall
wears off for Michigan fans. It's you lament some of the missed opportunities because I don't know, maybe 2 more wins, you're in this college football playoff picture still. But this is about as good a 7-5 season as you can have. You win both your rivalry games, all your trophies stay at home. It feels like the epilogue of the Jim Harbaugh era to a certain extent because of the guys like Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant, Makari Page, and Donovan Edwards, Kalel Mullings, all these guys who go out having never lost to this team. And then, the momentum off the field too, with the recruiting class. Seems like they're going to be pretty active in the transfer portal. This has really been a last 2 or 3 weeks where they really have been able to kind of have their cake and eat it too, coming off a national title. So when you look at the totality of all of it, we always talk about the only thing that matters is what happens next. It's pretty darn productive, about as good of a finish to the season as you could have imagined.
And it makes you giddy I mean, let's be honest. You know what? You go into the offseason with a completely different taste in your mouth. And I don't care anymore what happens in the third tier bowl game. You want to win. But to me, it's an exhibition. There are going to be a ton of guys that sit out, and that's fine. I want to see some of the young guys play, and they will. It's different. And that's fine. It is what it is. It's like a professional sport, and these guys have to look out for themselves. And I acknowledge that now, with the understanding that if guys are not invited back on scholarship, you know what? I don't have any. You don't owe anybody anything anymore if you're getting paid. That's just the way it is, and it's a professional sport. So, but to me, you beat Michigan State, you beat Ohio State, so you've got bragging rights over both your rivals, and you can play the game both ways. USC, they probably had no business winning that game. They were very fortunate at the end there. Kalel Mullings, Superman, another guy who raised his level of play in that Ohio State game to the point where he carried them for a while, literally for a while. Some of those Ohio State guys on his back on the one run that we will never forget. Guys that like Peyton O'Leary stepping up with a huge catch was unbelievable. Everybody will remember him for that, right? This guy was a lacrosse player who came here, and Peyton O'Leary, I think, did he lead the receivers in receiving?
He did. He led all Michigan players. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but and for Davis Warren, and I understand that he's not the best quarterback to ever play at Michigan. It's not his fault that he is who he is and that he's in this position. But this guy wins in Columbus, and I know that he had made a couple of mistakes. But to say that he didn't do anything to contribute to the victory is horseshit. And the guy made some huge throws on third down, and it got to the point where he'll be able to say that he won in Columbus, and where guys like Tom Brady didn't, guys like Denard Robinson didn't, guys like Chad Henne didn't, and nobody will ever be able to take that away from him. So I'm thrilled for that kid. And you know who else I'm happy for is Wink Martindale, who was getting crapped on for the first half of this year and comes out with an unbelievable game plan. And some of the stuff that they tried to do to catch them off balance, roll out right, throw back left, guys were all over it. They were prepared for everything that they threw at them. And God bless Ryan Day for that crappy game plan as well. Keep running it at Mason Graham. You'll be seeing that in your nightmares there, Ryan.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much there because Davis Warren, I think, Chris, you graded the passing offense a D, and I agree with it. But they made some plays, and he had a key scramble that was on a pass play. The 3 third down conversions on the second to last drive that chewed a ton of clock, even though it ended in an interception. 2 to Marlon Klein right at the sticks. Right, that's the thing Michigan was doing this whole game. They were playing with fire to an extent where you had no big plays really, other than the Alex Orji run, and then the Kalel one late. You're getting first downs right at the sticks. 2 to Marlon Klein, the one on the rollout to Peyton O'Leary. Then you're getting in a lot of third downs. Both teams were Michigan converted the right third downs, the ones they had to have in this game. They get good field position. Tommy Doman flips the field with a 68-yard punt. Dominic Zavada makes his 54-yard field goal by about a yard or two, with the wind. So, a little bit of fortune there. But, of course, Ohio State missed a field goal on that side as well. I think the other was on the other side, if I'm remembering it correctly.
Yep, it was.
Yeah, so you had the special teams, you kind of winning on the margins in that way. Ohio State started 3 or 4 drives inside their own 10. Michigan started, a couple drives inside, or at least one inside Ohio State's 10. They get the only touchdown of the game on the Wolverine side from Kalel Mullings after the Amir Hall interception. So all these little things that came together. The one constant, though, like you said, was Wink Martindale in that defense, getting stop after stop. 10 possessions for Ohio State, 10 points, 1 point per possession. I mean, this is, in terms of point total, by far the best performance Michigan's had defensively against Ohio State over the last 4 years. And it comes with the OG, the guy that people questioned throughout the season. And, different guys stepping up. But the defensive line, and really Ohio State, we talked about this last week on the show when I said, remember before last year's game in his interview with Fox, they asked him, what's going to determine this game? He said, who wins the rushing battle, who wins the turnover battle? Ryan Day's a changed man in that way. Then he brings in Chip Kelly this past offseason to run the offense. He's much better at coordinating a run game. They've had a good run game all season. They include the quarterback. It's a little more elaborate. 2 really good running backs. But they wanted to win this game a certain way. They wanted to be the tougher team to win the rushing battle. And, Michigan was able to win the rushing battle and completely shut down their run game. They were insisting on running time after time, first down, second down. They averaged 1.7 yards per carry on 7 second down runs. And that's when a lot of the booing came in, a lot of the grumbling. Okay, now we're going to go run, pass, and leave it to chance on third down. It was a numbers game because Michigan did what we talked about last week. They're going to play with a lighter box to stop the big plays. They bracketed Jeremiah Smith a lot. And, okay, Chip Kelly, a couple times when you watch the game, they checked into runs on some of these, even a couple third downs, and they run it. It doesn't matter how many guys you got in the box when 55's up there and 78 and Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore, TJ Guy with a huge stop. So the D-line took over the game. We talk about game wreckers all the time. That's what wrecking a game looks like. It was phenomenal.
100%. That was one of my keys to the game was you got to slow the offense with the front 7. And maybe they didn't trust their pass blockers against the Michigan defensive line. But I'll tell you what, on just about every play, those guys were on roller skates when they rushed 4. Mason Graham, that pocket was shrinking from the inside. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant pushing guys back into Howard. It was beautiful. It was and the holding, the amount of holding, everything, every break too. That's funny. Because most of the times the team that gets the breaks in this game is going to win it too, or gets the whistle. The whistle favored the Buckeyes, and you know what? I'm not going to complain about the officiating, but it wasn't 50-50. Every 50-50 call or went Ohio State's way. The pass interferences, could have been an OPI on Smith on the touchdown even.
Yeah.
I mean, the first one, for Christ's sake, the guy had his Quentin Johnson's helmet, his face mask. So and no holding calls, which absolutely blows your mind if you go back and watch this film. I heard Rayshawn Benny one time flat out scream, he's holding me. And it was so obvious. Jayshawn Barham gets grabbed by his belt from behind as he's running in. You can see his head snap back. No call. It was weird. And none of it mattered because they've got the W anyway. And had they had more success inside the 3-yard line and not called a pass play, they might have won this game by 10 points, which is unbelievable to me when you don't have Donovan Edwards out there. You didn't have Will Johnson out there. You did not have Colston Loveland out there. It was fascinating to me that this team, this group of guys that all of us had written off, with the exception maybe of Anthony Broom, who predicted a tight game. To me, what an accomplishment for these guys, something that they'll always remember. They'll get their little pendant. It's right. It's a pendant for winning the game. So, and the Ohio State guys are going to have to go buy some gold pants off of eBay from the guys in the 2000s that won them because they're not.
Yeah, I mean, if some of those guys are trying to get a tattoo, they may pawn them off for the right price.
Why not? Absolutely. Yeah, go buy your gold pants on eBay. There's a special Christmas sale going on 2 for 1.
Chris for $4.99 says, appreciate all the work, the hard work you guys do. I wanted to get your thoughts on the Gus Johnson call during the game. What was that? I haven't, hand to God, I haven't gone back and rewatched the game yet. This one doesn't quite lend itself to the rewatches in terms of style that maybe the last few did, but
I disagree. It was beautiful.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, I'm still crying.
You're going to love it.
I'll watch it tonight.
Spoiler alert. Michigan wins. So,
oh,
but
man.
Gus was absolutely terrible. Some of the things that he said, Michigan, Sharon Moore says, we didn't cheat this time. I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Didn't cheat
Yeah.
this time. They didn't cheat. You know what? You can talk about 2021 all you want. They just got their ass kicked up front. Everybody knows it. The only people that don't know it at this point are a handful of nutty Ohio bloggers and some Michigan State fans, right? Nobody else cares. 4 in a row, you dominated. The 2022 game, they said they knew Michigan was had some signs or whatever, so they prepared for that. 2023, there was no question that there was nothing going on because everybody knew. And this year, yeah. So come on, Gus, that was awful. And then saying that's classless and unnecessary about flag planting. Teams have been doing that for years. Michigan State fans were complaining about it. Somebody showed them planting the flag at Notre Dame in an overtime game over a decade ago. You look around the country and it's happening everywhere. Michigan did it a couple years ago. They did it. Texas did it at Michigan. Nothing.
And those guys were on the call, by the way.
And yeah, exactly. They were on the call. And yeah, that's a great point, Clay. And one other thing, I remember back in the 2000s when Jim Tressel would bring a freaking ladder to midfield and conduct the band in the alma mater, the OSU alma mater, when they won at Michigan. And I'm thinking somebody needs to knock that bastard off. And but that's what comes with winning that football game. You get the right to celebrate the way you want to, as long as you're not hurting anybody. And I remember Florida State. Guys, when Michigan had turf in 1991, they were taking pieces of sod with them and leaving with it. Come on, just quit being a bitch. And I got to be honest, Gus, that was terrible. And I was really disappointed in Joel Klatt too in some of his calls. I didn't think Joel had his best game either. There was like nothing about any of the calls, that could have gone either way. The face mask grab and stuff. I'm like, why isn't anybody mentioning the face mask grab? Oh, he just knocked his arm away. Did you see that? Well, he knocked his arm away because he's got his hand on his face mask. So I thought those guys were awful. Chris, very good question there.
Yeah. I agree on some of the calls. They didn't even mention them or even like notice. I know a lot's going on. If they're calling the game, they're probably got a bunch of screens and all this, but still, I mean, that's what's happening on the field. Those were consequential plays. They didn't mention any of the holds either. Those don't get mentioned as much as a face mask, when a guy draws a pass interference. And then Gus's call on the Jack Sawyer interception was actually kind of funny now. But like he barely had a voice there. And sounded like I saw a tweet that was like he sounded like he won the lottery.
Or was having an orgasm, if we're being honest.
Yeah,
it was terrible. That. Yeah, and to his credit, he called the Mullings run, was pretty excited about that one too. And somebody said maybe he's overcompensating because yes, he has, it's clear that he's from Michigan and, maybe likes Michigan, so on and so forth. It did seem like a little bit of overcompensating going on there, but that was extremely disappointing, especially the call on the flag planting thing. Come on, Gus, be better.
Yeah.
And I like Gus, I'll be honest.
Yeah, that Fox broadcast is terrible. I'm sorry. I screaming into it, and it's not exclusive to just like the moment Saturday. Like there are big moments from this Michigan over these last few years that, God, if you're wearing headphones, you got to pop them out because the voice is overmodulating and like screaming and howling into a microphone is not a good call of the game. It's just not. So, I mean, I'm here for those criticisms. I think that mixed with the touchdown or the like commercial kickoff, commercial drive, injury commercial, like it's, and I'm not a big fan of what Fox has done in general with taking a lot of these big games and putting them on at noon. I think big games are meant for 3:30 when the sun's starting to go down in the second half, or better, later on at night. But yeah, I'm just not a fan of the Fox broadcast and some of those types of things. Mike G says Gus Johnson sounded like Peter Brady going through puberty.
The young guys, young guys aren't going to have a clue what this means, but I had to pop that up there because God bless it, that was hilarious. Nice job, Mike. He did flat out. When it's time to change, Mike, I got you.
All right, we got a lot of super chats here, so I'm just going to start cleaning those up. Let's see. Josh Jackson, our good buddy, $4.99 says OSU had the chance to cover the spread easily and play the air raid game and chose not to because of their pride, and I love it. OSU is soft. And I was going to bring that up because I really think right now, when you look at the difference between the two programs and how this game is gone, one has a hell of a lot of hubris and thinks that it's going to be able to run the football on guys like Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham, the great defensive lines, the defenses that Michigan has had. And the other just goes to work. Like, you don't hear, the coach doesn't go out 2 hours before the game and, cut a wrestling promo for the fans as they're, on their way to the stadium. They don't do stuff like that. They go to work. They kind of cracked the code a few years ago on what the recipe was, which obviously is being the tougher team, being the more dominant team, being the team that doesn't wilt. And when it comes to, a lot of people asked me last week, like, why are you confident it'll be a tight game? Is because that if Michigan comes and applies pressure, it's always busted the pipes of this team in this game over the last 4 years or so. So I was pretty confident that was going to be the case again, because when you look at that doofus on the screen right now and his rosy cheeks, that's who he is. And that's what they are. These teams take on the personality of their head coach. Urban Meyer was a killer. Jim Tressel was a killer. Jim Harbaugh was a killer. And listen, this year hasn't gone the way a lot of us had hoped it would. But guess what? Sharon Moore football teams, we've seen 12 games of this now. They play to the final whistle. They play together. They play hard. And they don't always execute. But they are the tougher team. And they proved that in this game on Saturday. So that's the difference to me.
I wrote in the pregame that you're soft, the soft program that makes excuses every time they lose. They can't cope with it. Now you've got people out there saying there's an investigation because Larry Ellison has ties to people in San Francisco who might have paid off Chip Kelly and Ryan Day to lose this game. You had people talking about, they paid off Fielding to miss field goals. I mean, when you make excuses like that and you can't accept defeat and that you just weren't the better team, and you plant that seed, then your team is going to follow your lead. They aren't going to trust you. They aren't going to believe in you. And I think that's exactly what happened here. Part of me would feel for him because I think he's a decent guy. And I think he probably is in an environment there in Columbus where he just doesn't fit. Right. Maybe kind of like Jonathan Smith at East Lansing. We'll see. Just there's not enough hatred there with him to be successful against Michigan, in my opinion, at Michigan State. But Ryan Day, he asked for this. Right. When you make excuses for your programmer, now we see why we were losing. Well, that's not why you were losing. You were losing because you were soft, and your team takes on your identity. So no question about it. And I do think, as Steve Morrison said over here, that part of it was I don't think they had a whole lot of faith in Will Howard at one point because he didn't look the same after that big hit from Makari Page, Buckeye killer. What a hit from him that set the tone for the game.
Yeah, and Ryan Day has, I've noticed this over the last few years where when he talks publicly, he kind of is giving Ohio State fans what they want. He talks about how important this game is, how it's life or death. It's losing this game is the worst thing that's ever happened to him, or right up there with losing his dad and other things in his life, things to that degree. It's like, he makes it so dark. And then you watch Michigan and some of the videos of them running out of the tunnel and, them, having fun on the sideline, pumping up the Ohio State crowd. And, it's not that it doesn't mean as much to Michigan. It means just as much to those players, but they approach it a little bit differently. I think they approach it better. And it can't be so grim like that unless it's authentic, like it probably was for Urban Meyer. It literally was life and death for him, and he was able to win all those games. Of course, some of them against Brady Hoke and all that. But so it's just one of those things where he tries to talk about the toughness. He did that in the speech, Anthony, you mentioned before the game. But as Sharon Moore said after the game, that they don't have to really talk about it that much. It's just how they are. That's how Michigan plays football. And Ohio State has to talk about it because they're just not as tough. And they could have won this game. They certainly could have won it even if it went that way. Tight. If they would have made one or two more plays, maybe they come out on top. But they weren't able to do it because they're not what they say they are. They have a season left to play. They still have games left. They could win the national championship. They're still tied right now for the second best odds to win it all. But man, if that didn't look like it broke him when you saw him on the field after the game trying to sing whatever stupid song that they sing.
He was stunned too during that fight, and he's asking Jack Sawyer as he's watching him scream and yell about planting the flag again. I might add, they're not going to do
Yeah.
that again. Again being the key word there.
Oh, they're going to do it again, Jack.
Oh, that's what I said. I said, hey, in a couple of years, and they won't allow them to because the NCAA is going to put a stop to that after what happened this weekend with everybody, not just Michigan. But and then he asks, what happened? What happened? What do you mean just now or the last 3.5 hours? You guys lost, Ryan. It's time to go and console your guys
It's
because
like
he
Doc
looked.
Brown asking what year it is.
Exactly. He had no idea. He was completely stunned. And you're looking there and you're watching this thing and you're thinking this is a broken man and a broken team. And I think he has lost the confidence of that locker room that he knows what it takes to beat Michigan because it certainly looked like he had no clue out there on Saturday. He got out coached again by Sharon Moore. And it was beautiful to watch. As I wrote, there is no nicer, sweeter sound in all of college football than the sound of 110,000 Buckeyes fans standing there, not knowing what to do in complete silence. And Sharon Moore at the end of the third quarter said, "You hear that? You listening to that?" He goes, "You're damn right. You don't hear a damn thing." And there were less Michigan fans than I've ever seen for a Michigan game. Part of it is because of they're probably not safe there. Part of it because nobody thought this was going to happen. Nobody thought they were going to win. But to listen to that, and you knew you had them, fellas. You knew they had them, and 100 yards to 10, I think it was in the fourth quarter, and 1 passing yard and no first downs for the Buckeyes speaks volumes. What is the rushing yardage in the fourth quarter of the last 4 games? I think it's like 384 to 70 or 384 to 80 in favor of Michigan. The tougher team is kicking your ass year in and year out, and it's been a pleasure to watch. Thank you, Jim Harbaugh. Thank you, Sharon Moore.